We are live. Let's just see if we're live. Hello, everybody. If we're live, I don't trust it, so let me just observe with my own eyes that we're live, and then maybe I'll believe it. Yeah, we're live. Cool. Thank you, Jonna. So today we are borrowing Jonna's laptop, and we are talking about what did I title this? We're talking about transulfuration pathways, methylation pathways, sulfur intolerance. Hydrogen sulfide SIBO, everything that's basically connected to these kind of issues. They're all connected. Let me know how the audio is, because we've got a new microphone here. We've got a cool little microphone. So let me know if that's good. Should be good. And Joanna's not going to make too much noise, are you? Thank you. So the reason I wanted to do this on a laptop today instead of on my phone is we've got some images to look at, and I was going to leave them as a comment, so you could look at them as a comment. But Facebook apparently doesn't like you leaving images on lives, so that didn't go very well. So what I'm going to do is, if I have a little play around with it, or maybe I'll get Joanna to help me. So Joanna's going to give me a hand because I'm a bit of a tech noob. So Joanna's going to show me how to change the screen, and you're going to see, yeah, that's perfect. So me little like that. So you should be able to see me small now. And then we're going to find, no, we want the other one first. Can you make it full screen? You'll get to laugh at me and my lack of technical expertise. So we're just going to figure this out. You want it on the window, I think. Okay. So what we've got, basically, we've got some images of, wow, look at that, that looks fun. We've got some really interesting images here. These are methylation pathways and transulfuration pathways. So we're going to be looking at these. I'm going to help you understand what they mean, because as you can see, it's a pretty complicated image. It's not the most intuitive thing to be able to read and understand. So you might see this, like you might like know you've got methylation issues, transulfuration issues, and then you see something like, you're like, oh, I want to fix it, and then you look at something like this, and you're like, where the hell do I even start with something like this? So if I go like this, does it show? No, not that way. This way. Okay. So we've got two here. We've got these two images. So this one is primarily methylation. As you can see, you've got. So you should be able to see my little mouse, so I can point. So you've got like NTHFR up here. You're probably really familiar with this, and you've got CBS over here. So this point here, this little area that I'm sort of circling here, is basically what is in, oh, wrong side, what is in here. So as you can see, you've got methionine, homocysteine up here. If you go back here, it's methionine, homocysteine here. So these images, basically, you can put them on top of each other, but this one is more focused on methylation, and this one is more focused on transulfuration. So, well, transulfuration is this part here that I've got selected. As you can see here, it says transulfuration pathway. So this is this part here. So all of this down here is like what happens past the transulfuration pathway. So we're going to be looking at both because both are relevant. Primarily, what I want to look at today is sulfate, why sulfate is so important, and how we can actually provide a lot of relief to the symptoms of sulfur intolerance by using sulfate. So if you look at this pathway here, you see, like, so we start here. So we'll go through transulfuration. So we're going to skip all of this for the time being. We're just going to come here to cysteine. So this is after all the transulfuration has happened. So this is cysteine. Also, if you take a supplement, a sulfur supplement, you've probably heard of NAC, N-acetylcysteine. This is coming in right here. So if you have transulfuration issues, you might find that taking NAC is really helpful, because it's basically just inserting a nutrient in right here. So this whole pathway that's above it becomes irrelevant. This isn't involved in any of it. It just comes in straight here. So as you can see, at this point here, we've got a cysteine molecule. Cysteine, it goes into so many different things. If you come over here on the left-hand side, you've got basically glutathione synthesis. So you've got like reduced glutathione, which is glutathione that's like usable and is active as an antioxidant. And then you've got this process that's occurring where it's being used and recycled. So cysteine is going to be used in this as well. So you can see why having intolerance to sulfur is really bad news, because you need sulfur to make glutathione. Glutathione, primary endogenous antioxidant in the human body. So yeah, pretty important. You don't really want to be without enough of this. So you've also got these other pathways over here. So you've got loads of different things that are happening here. You've got the oxidative route down into cysteine sulfate, sulfonate, and sulfite, and then all the way down to sulfate here. And as you can see, you've got this pathway that takes you down here to sulfate, but you've also got another pathway over here that takes you to sulfate. And the thing that I think is really interesting that I want you to pay attention to today is part of this pathway is hydrogen sulfide being turned through the sulfide to sulfate oxidation into sulfate. So I think what's happening, and this is a very interesting, to me, this is a very interesting, maybe I'll go as far as to say revelation, very interesting understanding that if the body is deficient in sulfate, it does whatever it can to get that sulfate. So say that there's a problem in this pathway here that's going on, and the body's got enough cysteine, or maybe it doesn't have enough cysteine. If you've got sulfur intolerance, it's almost always the case that we actually really need sulfur. So because sulfur is really important, sulfur is the 6th most abundant mineral in the body. You use it for, well, as you can see, you've got this image up. You use it for a lot of different stuff. And the thing about all of these things is they're really connected to detoxification. So I had a really interesting, let me just see if I can find it on my phone. It's on my phone. It's okay, Joanna. I'm good. Joanna, my lovely assistant's coming to help me. I just need to read something off my phone. So I got a quote earlier about the function of sulfate. And let me just read this out to you. It is involved in a variety. So this was me just doing some research. So basically, I just went on Google because I see this pathway, and I'm thinking, okay, so the body has multiple ways to get sulfate, and up here you've got it being reduced through hydrogen sulfide, and then you think some people develop hydrogen sulfide dysbiosis in the gut. So the gut flora is taking sulfur molecules that are present in the diet. So this could be like the sulfur in the food. So this could be in eggs. This could be in kale, this could be in ginger, this could be in whatever the sulfurous food is. Maybe it's even in NAC itself, so NAC as a supplement. And then you're getting this hydrogen sulfide gas, and it's, if you know you've had that, you know what that smells like. So I always believe that the gut flora is an adaptive mechanism. It's doing something to facilitate health in the body. So I always try to look at the gut flora, and instead of trying to just correct it so that it looks like normal according to what lab work looks like as normal, I ask the question, like, why is the gut flora doing this, and why is it the thing that makes the most sense to keep the individual in the highest level of health in their current situation? So if you've got problems with like deficiencies of sulfur in the body, particularly sulfate is what we're looking at here. So if you're low in sulfur, you're probably going to have low glutathione. You're also going to have low sulfate. So we know that these things are very important. They're also very involved in detoxification. So both of these sides of the pathway are very involved in detoxification. So that tells you sulfur is a very important detoxification molecule. So if you know you've had a toxic exposure in the past, be it metals, be it mold, be it pesticides, be it whatever it is, and you know you have sulfur intolerance, you know that even if you are intolerant to the sulfur, your body needs it. Like everybody needs sulfur because, as I said, it's the 6th most abundant mineral in the body. But especially so if you have had some kind of toxic exposure, because this is how your body removes these things from your body. So at this point here, we've got cysteine, and what I'm going to look at here is the use of Epsom salts. So Epsom salts are really cool because if you're struggling with hydrogen sulfide or you're struggling with sulfur intolerance, and this is primarily an issue in the gut, eating any food that's high in sulfur is just going to give you astronomical gastrointestinal problems, which are incredibly unpleasant, and like nobody wants to do that. I really believe that if you can find symptom relief without using medication, you actually set yourself in alignment with being able to heal as quickly as possible. So if we can find a way to provide the body with these nutrients without causing it to have any kind of reactive symptom, that's usually a good thing. So just by bypassing the gut already, if you do have hydrogen sulfide SIBO, we've completely like bypassed that. We're not giving that any sulfur to ferment. Not that that's a bad thing. I think that the gut flora is doing that as an adaptive mechanism to give you the sulfate that you need. But as with in Epsom salts, so Epsom salts are MgSO4. If you look down here at the bottom of this image, you see you've got sulfate, which is SO4. So magnesium sulfate, Epsom salts, is basically MgSO4. So it's magnesium bound to sulfate, which is what it is. Magnesium sulfate, Epsom salts, interchangeable. So this way we bypass the gut and we're using transdermal absorption. So we're getting the sulfur molecule, the sulfate molecule, in through the gut. So this isn't going to have a direct impact on your glutathione levels over here, because this is, as you can see, this is like, you can imagine this is like a river. So everything that comes downstream is going down the river. And at this point here, where it splits, it's like the river splits into two separate streams and they don't converge again. So this cysteine, once it comes down here, it's not really interacting with this side of the pathway. They're split, like there's a split here. So when it goes down here, it's not having, like this sulfate here isn't really going to affect what's going on over here directly, but it can affect it indirectly. Because say you have an extremely high need for sulfate, all of this cysteine that's being put into the body, your body is going to choose to convert this cysteine over here and bring it down and turn it into sulfate because that's what it needs. But if we're providing sulfate as a, like exogenously as its own thing, so the body isn't having to metabolize it and having to make it out of what you're eating, it has a sparing effect. So instead of the body, made that pop up. Let's try and get that to go away. Cool. So instead of the body converting the cysteine down this pathway or moving the cysteine along this pathway, we've already provided the sulfate. So then none of this cysteine that we've got up here that we might already be low in because we have sulfur intolerance, we're not eating lots of sulfur. So instead of it having to come down this pathway or this pathway, all of it that gets moved to here can get channeled through this pathway, which is cool. Because now, as we react cysteine with the other cofactors that we need to make glutathione. So if you watched one of my videos recently, you'll know the other ingredients that we need are glutamine, which is here. So you see this is another nutrient that's being involved. And down here, you've got glycine. So these are the three amino acids that you need to have. You can just talk, John. I'll stop. Okay, cool. Great. Okay. So John has just updated me about something. So the cysteine molecule here is then bound with glutamine at this process and then with glycine at this process and is brought down into glutathione. And this is in its reduced state, which means it's available as an antioxidant. So this is the most powerful antioxidant in the human body. I've got this live open as well. Let me just make sure that I do have it open. If you have any questions at any point as I'm going through this, let me know. I'd love to answer your questions. I like to actually, like, I consider like what I'm doing, I'm teaching. Come say hello. Come say hello. Hello. Okay, that's cool. So I'm basically teaching like a class right now. So if you have questions, let me know, because I'm trying. The best way that you can help a teacher is to tell them where your gaps in knowledge and understanding is. So if you tell me where you need help, I can help you way better. So let me know if you need any help with anything. Cool. So let me know if you have questions. So by providing the sulfate transdermally, we are avoiding having to put extra sulfur through the digestive system, which is going to be a problem if you've got hydrogen sulfide SIBO or anything like that. But so with the context of looking at hydrogen sulfide SIBO, I want you to try to change your perspective on it, as instead of it being a pathogenic dysbiosis that is feeding on your sulfur and on the food that you're eating and it's like making you sick, try to change your perspective to see how the organisms that are present are an adaptive mechanism. They're there to do a job. They're serving you in some way. And I know that they have a host of unpleasant symptoms, but the symptoms aren't really the problem. The problem is something higher up. So a really good example of what this could be is a lot of this detoxification process. So as I just read, let me get you that quote again. So this is sulfate. It is involved in a variety of important biological processes, including biosynthesis and detoxification via sulfation of many endogenous and exogenous compounds. So endogenous and exogenous means compounds that are produced within the body and substances that we are exposed to from our environment. So that would be mold, mycotoxins, metals, other poisonous things. But we also produce like poisonous things inside us, and we need to get rid of them. Sulfate is also required for cell matrix synthesis and for the maintenance of cell membranes. So it's more than just detoxification. It's about like biological functions. It's part of your metabolism. So it's really important. And if your body doesn't have enough of these things, it has to prioritize what it's doing. And your body's really smart. It knows what it's doing. So it will prioritize what's necessary. But what my big point here is with understanding that we can provide the body with sulfate down here easily, transdermally, which means you're the likelihood of having a reaction is very low. And because we're bypassing the digestive system, which is where a lot of the unpleasant symptoms of sulfur intolerance come from. But if you have other bodily symptoms, so say you do have an Epsom salts bath and it still causes some kind of reaction, it might not be a bad thing. It might just be sort of a detoxification reaction, and it's something you just have to go really slowly with. So this cycle ends here, but I'm sure below this there's like a million other things that sulfate does in the body. So as you can see, let me go to this other image. Where's the other image, Jonah? Okay, it's here. So these cycles, they basically just go on and on and on into infinity, and they just constantly like re-loop into each other. So this model also shows something interesting here. So as I said, in this image here, this area here that you've got demonstrated as transulfuration pathway. So here, this part here where it goes homocysteine and then it comes down into cysteine. So this process here is visible here as well. So this one gives us a little bit more information. So you can see cystathionine goes into taurine, glutathione, and sulfate. So we just talked about sulfate, obviously, that's the one we were primarily talking about. We just talked about glutathione as well, but we've got taurine over here. Taurine is very interesting because it's an amino acid and it's a sulfur-based amino acid. So it's got a sulfur molecule in it, obviously because we're making it out of cystathione, which is essentially, so let's go back to the other one. No, this way. So we've got cysteine here. Cysteine, cystathione, they're basically the same thing. They're just simplifying it. So this molecule here, this is very present in bile, in the bile that we produce. So this gives us another really interesting question: is in hydrogen sulfide and issues. So this isn't just hydrogen sulfide SIBO. This is other things like biophilia and other types of organisms that are present in the gut that like to eat our bile. So things that like to, so biophilia, obviously the name, break that down, is bile-ophilia. So it's like philia is like to love, and bile is obviously bile. It's your bile acids. So they love to eat your bile acids. But if instead of looking at it as a problem, as a pathology, look at it as an adaptive mechanism. Why might an organism want to eat your bile? Well, when we understand that in this whole process, we know that sulfur is so connected to detoxification in the body. We also know that the primary way that the body removes fat-soluble toxins is in a process. So all of this stuff happens. So as you can see, this whole demonstration here, all about detoxification. The body packages up these toxins into the bile and then is removed from the body by emptying that bile from the gallbladder into the small intestine, all the way through the small intestine, which is where it's fermenting. If you've got biophilia, if you've got other organisms, you've got loads of different processes occurring here. You've got bile acids being reduced. You've got these. So basically, this process is where you've got bacteria in your gut that come to the bile. They take the poisons, the toxins, the pollutants. They eat the bile. They take this off, and then this bile acid that's now healthy and clean is able to be reabsorbed and put back into your body, and you're able to reuse this bile acid. And this process actually happens like 4 or 5 times in one meal. If you have a meal with quite a lot of fat in it, like 50 to 80 grams of fat, you're recycling this bile over and over and over again, even in the same meal. So if you don't have the right organisms present to allow this process to occur, where you're detaching, there's reduction, there's deconjugation, there's this process where you're taking the toxin out of the bile acid. If this isn't happening, if the organisms aren't present to do this, then you're going to reabsorb that bile acid when it still has the toxin bound to it, which isn't good, because then you're basically just auto-intoxicating yourself. And your body's going to say, we can't get rid of toxins this way, we have to do it a different way. So then you get acne, or you get like asthma, or you get some other kind of skin reaction, or you get urination issues, maybe like what's that called? The interstitial cystitis. So it's where you've got more toxins being excreted through the urine than would be preferred. So we need to make sure that this process in the gut is functioning properly. Let me just check and see if I have any questions. Again, like I said, let me know if you have any questions. I know it's a bit of a funny time for me to be live, so I don't particularly expect any. Let me just refresh this. Anyway, okay. So practical tips. So first of all, as we were talking about here, this taurine. So let's talk about some supplements. So at this point here, where you've got cystathionine, you can basically take NAC, and it's basically just injecting this right in at this stage here. And if we go back to the other one, it's like injecting it in here. It's cysteine. So if you do have issues here, so say, for example, let me go to this one. This one is a bit easier. So if you've got, so let me just break this chart down a little bit for you here. So over here, you've got this key. So all of these blue texts. So if you go to this point here, all of these above here, these are different types of single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are mutations in your genome that reduce, well, actually it's not always reduce, they basically cause a level of dysregulation of how these things function. So I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but I know that one of these actually increases the transcription of these things into the X. I think it might actually be CBS. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. I need to have a look at my chart. That'll help me remember. So all these blue ones. So down here to, I mean, you can also see these are enzymes because if you look at the names of the end of all of these, they all end in A's. So this is, I'm not going to try and say that one. Let's try and say an easier one. So we've got cystathionine beta synthase dihydrofolate reductase. So if it's got A's at the end, it's an enzyme. So these are all enzymes, and these are all enzyme pathways that we have in our liver. This is a really common one. You've probably heard of this one, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. So all of these are enzymes. Down here, these black ones, these are sort of like nutrients, you could say. So maybe you've heard of like SAMe, you've got 5-MTHF. So this is when you take a methylated folate supplement, this is probably what you're taking. So if we were to look at why taking methylfolate can be helpful. So when you've got these kinds of genetic issues where you're not able to methylate very, very quickly, you've got up here. So let's look at this. This is a cycle. So this circle here is what your body is doing when it's trying to methylate folic acid. So folic acid, so this is like dietary folic acid coming in here, or dietary folate coming in here. It needs to go through these processes. So it needs to come up here, it needs to go through this pathway, it needs to go through this pathway. You've got this cofactor here, so it means this is a nutrient that's required for this next step. So it needs to go through this pathway, which requires B6, and then it needs to go through this pathway up here. And this is where you can have this enzyme mutation, MTHFR, up here, which means the process of going from here to here can be inhibited by this pathway. This can become a rate limiting factor, which means your body isn't able to keep up because of the genetics. However, for this to occur, you also need to have B3, B2, and DHA. These are cofactor nutrients. So these are required for this process to occur. So if you're missing these, even if you have this MTHFR problem, this might not be the rate limiting factor. It might be one of these nutrients that you're missing instead. So these are just as important. It's just as important to consider these things up here. So we bring this around here, and as you can see, so if we were to take, for example, a methylfolate supplement here, this is up here. So this is coming in at this stage in the cycle. So it's already bypassed this step, this step, this step, and this step. And all of these cofactor nutrients, they don't matter. If you've got an enzyme mutation here, doesn't matter because you've bypassed it. So we come in here. But then to move around in the next step in the cycle, we now have other cofactor nutrients. So this could loop, but usually what happens is this comes up here, and it begins to enter this methionine homocysteine cycle. So this is part of I think it's literally just called the methionine homocysteine. I think there's a name for it. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but this is basically the start of. So this is still like methylation up here. This is still methylation stuff that's happening because you've got like SAMe and SAH over here and SAHH and all of these cofactor nutrients. This here, BHMT. This is another enzyme pathway that you may have mutations in. Up here, you could have another enzyme mutation up here. You've got the MTases here, so you may have a mutation in any of these. So these can all become rate limiting factors, but they don't have to be. If you've got a low level of nutrients, they're going to be the rate limiting factor instead. So you can see up here, we've got magnesium and potassium. So if you're missing any of these nutrients, it doesn't even matter if you've got a mutation in this pathway because you're missing the nutrients that you need. So this is how we can support these things epigenetically to make sure these things are running faster. And also, say you need to move all the way through this cycle, but you've got mutation here, and you've got mutation here, and you've got mutation here. We can just provide nutrients in say we could bring in here. So I know that there's a lot of people that benefit from taking SAMe as a supplement, and that's because you've just bypassed this point here. So this MS, this is in blue text. So this one here, if you come down here, look at MS, this is methionine synthase. So this enzyme here is methionine synthase. If you've got a mutation there, if you just take methionine as a nutrient, it doesn't matter because you've provided your body with this nutrient up here. And lots of these things are in your diet. Like you will find methylated folate. So I used to use a lot of vegetable juice, for example. Green juice is really great. Liver, this sort of folate is already methylated up here. Methionine. So methionine is a sulfur-based compound, obviously because this is in the transulfuration sort of pathways around here. So you get a lot of methionine in your diet as well. I think methionine is very common in. I think eggs definitely have some methionine in. It's you kind of get an idea because they're the foods that kind of smell sulfury. They've got some methionine in, and when we're providing methionine in here, like say for example, this whole part of the cycle becomes unnecessary because we've already put the nutrient in up here. So we can bypass a lot of this stuff by providing nutrients and epigenetic factors. So your enzyme pathways don't have to be the rate limiting factors. So I can talk about this for days, but I don't know what it is you really need to know. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm going to do more videos like this if you have questions about it. So if you've got any questions about this page, if you've got any questions about this page, I love doing research on these things. I find it really interesting. So even if I don't know the answer, I'm more than happy to do research and figure it out and make a video about it. So if you've got any questions about these things, let me know. And if you need help with this, let me know. So John's going to come and help me figure out how to finish this. As I said, any questions, let me know. I'll answer them either as a comment, if it's something I can do very quickly, or if it's something that really needs a whole video for itself, I'll be more than happy to make a video about it. So hope you found it interesting. Hope you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, let me know. And I think John is going to finish it now. Yeah, great. Bye.